Hello and welcome to my podcast, Creative Full Time, where I interview Canadian creatives and actors, how they're doing the damn thing in Canada. Today I have very special guests. I'm so excited. They are performing at the Toronto Fringe, or they have, by the time you've watched this, they had performed at the Toronto Fringe. They're Cabaret of Murder. And so today I have Katie, Isabella, and Paulina. Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. This was such a great last-minute impromptu interview. It worked out perfectly. I love. So how did this start? Who came up with the Cabaret of Murder, and how did you guys get involved?
So Blair wrote the show. He actually tried to put it on the year before we started, but COVID and other things happened with the original cast. And he started the idea by listening to a podcast. I think first podcast on the left.
I think so.
And they read one of the plays that we perform in our show that was written by Cho Sung-hee, the Virginia Tech Massacre. And he listened to it and he was like, oh my God, this is insane. There has to be other art like this out there. So he researched, he found all the material, put it together, and
here we are.
That's amazing. Yeah, so I guess for those who don't know, tell us about the show, what the show entails.
Well, the show is a compilation of art pieces created by real serial killers and murderers. So not only they killed a bunch of people, they also created art about it.
Naturally.
yeah.
Or about their confessions, or about different subjects completely.
Yeah.
So Charles Manson, for example, he wrote music, even for a very, very famous band that we're not gonna disclose right now. But he has a song that is very happy, and it's actually called Your Home Is Where You're Happy. And if you guys don't know what he did, well, he convinced a bunch of people to kill other people.
Yes.
So it's very weird that he created such a song, you know? And then we also, Blair found poetry. For example, Ted Bundy wrote a bunch of poetry, and we performed that piece. And then we tell you who was the creator and what was her crime.
Yeah, I find that so neat how you guys do that with you perform the art and then you're like, by the way, this is from, and because every time the audience is like, what? That's nuts.
It's almost like the art humanizes them, but in a scary way, not in like an empathetic way.
Yeah.
And it is scarier to think like these people did just create poetry like you and I, or like, you know, they created all these things that you would consider a normal, you know, person to be doing.
Yeah. And the scenes too, the creation. It's funny watching the scenes that the person wrote for the script, because it's like, oh, that's just, you know, being in this industry, I'm like, I know people who've written scripts. This sounds like a trauma script, but
Yeah,
it's
for sure. It does give you a glimpse into their mind.
Absolutely. And you don't know who it is at first, but while you're listening to the piece, you can kind of try and like, if you're familiar with true crime and with what these people have done, like you can kind of make connections. And then after, when we tell you who it is, a lot of the time the audience will be like, oh, like that makes sense. Or they'll have forgotten that it was a murderer who wrote it, and they'll be enjoying the piece. And then we're like, that was written by Ted Bundy, and they're like, ooh.
I hate that I like that. That's so funny. So this has been on tour for 3 years now. This is your third year?
Yeah.
You just tour it at Fringe every summer? Is that how the tours happen?
It's Fringe and other theater festivals that are similar to Fringe.
Nice. Wicked. And so is this your third time in Toronto then? Or
No, this is our big tour.
Yeah.
So the other ones were like two city tours.
Yeah,
Okay, got you.
Last year we did 3 cities.
Oh yeah, that's
True.
3. So we're slowly building up.
You made a pretty big leap this year, because you have a lot of tour dates. You were
7
just in
cities.
Montreal, 7 cities.
Yeah.
Montreal just rocked Toronto. And then you're headed
Montreal,
to
Ottawa.
Oh yeah,
Toronto, and we're heading to Winnipeg, and after that we'll do Calgary, Edmonton, and Victoria Fringe Festival.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Oh, and I forgot to mention, they're from Vancouver.
Yes!
They're my first out-of-town guests. I'm so excited, and my first multiple interview, which is so exciting for me.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what have you learned about being on tour with this show? What is some surprises along the way?
Finding time for yourself
Yes.
is very important. I think last year, like personally, I found it very hard, even though it was just three cities that we did. I just found it very hard because I was trying to go and like do everything, and just finding that time to, okay, I need to relax today. I need to like do something for myself.
Right.
So I feel like that is very important when you are on tour. Just remembering that you're not a machine, you are a human, and you need to relax at some point during the tour.
Yeah.
I think also understanding each other, because we all come from different ways of life and everything, and including Blair, our producer, as well. And so there have been times where like we're all living in the exact same space, and so it's like it's a practice in patience and understanding for sure as well.
Yeah, and understanding. Stop.
Okay, we're getting better at it. I think
We're definitely getting better at it, but as Bella is saying, like sometimes, especially if you're in a different city that you've never been, for example, like Montreal, you want to go and do the touristy stuff. You want to go and just wander around, but then you're like, we have a show at 5. So what should I do actually? Should I just rest for the show, or should I just go and explore? So that's been a little bit challenging, and particularly too, like my first language is not English. So that's been tricky too, to just wake up in English and be in English all the time. It's like, okay, I'm like, vamos.
yes, she's doing fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
What is one of your favorite things about Fringe?
For me, the community.
Yeah.
The community has been amazing, and in different city has different like values. I find that Toronto, they're so eager to just consume theater, and it doesn't matter what the topic it is. They're just eager to know about you and to know about your show. And in different cities has been very different. So
I think it's very inspiring to see people telling their stories. I think just in general, a lot of times we think like, oh, no one cares about what we have to say sometimes, or all this kind of stuff. And so it's very inspiring to see people, telling the hard stories or just the fun stories in their life, and audiences responding to it. It's very inspiring.
Yeah, and I also love that like it's a lottery. So you could be a super well-established theater company and have something you've been preparing for ages, or you could just be a person with an idea, or maybe you don't even have an idea and you still submit and you get drawn and you're like, oh, now I actually need to create something. Maybe you've never done something like this before. Maybe you just wanted to try something new, but you're still given that opportunity and given a space, given promotional materials. Of course, you have to work at the promotion yourself, which again is a bit of a learning curve. But it's just that it gives anyone a chance.
Yes.
You don't have to be a professional artist. You don't have to be involved in theater. You could just be, someone walking down the street and you're like, oh, that sounds cool. I want to try that.
Yeah, it's very accepting and welcoming space.
Yeah.
Every Fringe festival I've been at, I felt that way.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And something that I love particularly about the Toronto's Fringe is like how many important discussions are happening in the shows. Like even we went to see Girl Night Cabin Fever, and it's like a horror comedy, like kind of like mocking horror movies about like cabins and that kind of stuff. But they also have an argument, and they also bring up like, okay, influencers and their followers, like how much trust are we building between one another, and how much can we actually trust the stranger behind the screen? So that's an important conversation. And like, I haven't seen the show, but I know what gringas are doing, and I can't wait for it. And it's also an important conversation, like how second generation people feel so detached and far away from their parents or grandparents' culture. So yeah, it's a very inspiring festival for sure.
Nice. I didn't know that happened with the Fringe. I thought you had to have a solid finished product to pitch and be considered for the Fringe. But yeah, it's like any level of, if you have an idea, if you have a crew together and you want to do something, or you have a half-baked idea, you can submit and get into it. Just when they accept you, you're like, gotta get it done.
I know some people who have submitted with like a title, or not even a title, like a working title, and they're like, I kind of know that I want to do something along this lines, and it could change. It could be completely different as well. So like you could have almost no idea what you want to do and still submit. You just gotta get it done by the deadline.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's awesome. For this Toronto Fringe, are you able to go see a lot of other shows that are going on, or is it busy because you guys are doing shows almost every day, right?
We do try to see as many shows as we can, or ones that we find may sound interesting to us. But it really depends on the festival and where we're located, where our building is located, and between the theaters and everything. We do have one car between the four of us, so transit's a factor too, and
so we've definitely tried to. We've seen a few, not as many as I think that we would like. But it's just we are so far away. And then there's also like the touristy thing we want to do as well. So we're like trying to have a balance between doing touristy things and then also going to see shows. So we've seen a few. I think some of us have seen different shows as well. But I know we're planning to see a few more as well. So.
Nice. That's awesome. And with your show, with it dealing with serial killers and their artwork or whatnot, have you ever had any negative reactions about advertising and promoting serial killers' works?
I want to change. I think we don't promote serial killers' works. It's more of a look into their minds.
Right.
And then we also discuss the victims afterwards and everything. We definitely have encountered, I can think of one individual.
The walkout?
From
Salmon Arm?
Yes. From Salmon Arm last year, if I can tell the story.
Go for it.
We were performing, and it was, 5 minutes into the show or something like that, like quite early in. We do let people know, like we're not hiding anything, we let people know exactly what the show's going on. They know what they're walking into.
And we give them the opportunity to leave.
We do.
Like, we understand this isn't for everyone, the exit is right there. Like we have like a beginning speech where we point out the exit and we're like, feel free if you're we don't know other people's trauma, that it might trigger something, or maybe they just don't want to know about serial killers.
But this one individual walked out, and one of the volunteers asked, is there a reason you're walking out? Or was it Blair that asked?
No, it was a volunteer.
And she said, well, I just don't believe in this kind of stuff. And that was probably the most interesting walkout, because
you don't believe that they do art as well?
You don't believe in the serial killers?
Yes, because everything
which part of this doesn't exist for you?
It is fact-based, what we're presenting, so you do unfortunately have to believe it, because it's fact.
It is true.
But they certainly weren't enjoying it, and that's okay. It's not everyone's cup of tea.
It's not for everyone, definitely.
Not for everyone.
But we have been hit with, the majority has been positive reactions.
Which has also kind of been surprising.
We feel we do a decent job at presenting it and everything. But it's just the material is, it can be quite heavy. We try to keep it light in between so that it's not all, too heavy, but it certainly deals with some heavy material.
Absolutely. Like, we're talking about murders, we're talking about like a lot of things that people don't want to hear about, right? But I feel that, at least, and maybe you guys can relate too, when we are like marketing and like our cards are pretty similar, like black and red and like the serial killer's faces, and you can see Charles Manson's eyes right there. And sometimes when we hand it out, people are like, I don't want it. And it's like,
if you don't
great,
like the card,
it's not for you. But then there's people that, are you interested in true crime? They're like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, this is our market.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, who is your target audience for this? It's the true crime lovers, for sure.
Dark comedy lovers.
Yeah. Theater people also find it very attractive because it's like, okay, we're talking about art, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the main focus of our show.
Yeah.
And like I feel that theater people or actors or people that are in the industry are aware that sometimes art is not always like just rainbows and butterflies. So they're like, oh, they did more than just killing people. Interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so we've had like very good feedback also from that kind of people.
Nice. I find it interesting too, like some of them you do get a peek into their life of like, oh, something happened to you, or like something.
It's a lot of, not an excuse for their actions, but you can see.
It does humanize them, as you said.
It's a lot of trauma, a lot of mental health issues that have gone untreated.
Yes.
You know, there's definitely common themes.
Yeah. And it's interesting, and it just like goes to show that maybe if we focused a little more on mental health, maybe some of these horrible things wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And again, we're not excusing them at all. They were horrible people. They did horrible things, but maybe some innocent person's death could have been avoided if they got the help that they needed.
Certainly.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's a lot of patterns too, like a lot of things that are repetitive, even in their art. So it's like a lot of them talk about hope, for example.
That's true.
And it's like, what if someone actually had sat down with them and listened to them? Or, for example, not to disclose anything from the show, but Elizabeth Laffer, Canadian, from Ontario, by the way, when she was a teenager, she reported being in love with another woman. But she grew up in a very conservative household, and her dad was very against it. So maybe if she would have had different guidance, something else would have happened instead of what she did.
Right.
A lot of them also have like childhood trauma. Like some of them were literally dropped on their head as a child. Sometimes there's like a surgery gone wrong where like they weren't properly medicated and they like suffered this horrible debilitating pain as a child, and you know that does stuff to your mind as well. And so there's quite often something in their childhood that they went through, and this came out of it.
I think it's a bit of a study in how we can prevent it moving on. As humans, you know, looking at what went wrong with these individuals.
100%. Do you guys have a favorite? Weird to say favorite piece, but like a favorite part of the, or maybe like a poem by someone. You don't have to like recite the poem or anything, but like, do you have a favorite serial killer's artwork or part that you like to perform in the show?
I love the Axeman of New Orleans. He was active in, I believe, the early 1900s.
Late 1800s. He was executed in 1896.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Thank you. That's your line. That's your line?
Yes. The Axeman of New Orleans.
No, it's her line.
Never caught.
Oh, I'm thinking of a different one.
What are we talking about? Yeah, you're talking about H.A. Toll.
Oh, you're talking.
Hold on. Rewind.
What's your favorite piece to
The Axeman of New Orleans.
What a surprise.
So he was active during at the height of the Spanish influenza in New Orleans, and so they had a quarantine like even stricter than when we were quarantined during COVID. Like everything was closed. You were not allowed to leave your house. But he wrote a letter to the police or to the newspapers, and it was published. And basically, in his letter, he tells them that he really likes jazz music. So if they open up their jazz clubs, you know, have a party where they play jazz music in their homes every Tuesday night, he's going to come around every Tuesday night and check, he won't murder the people that listen to jazz music. So the people of New Orleans came out of quarantine on Tuesday nights, opened up jazz clubs, went out and partied. I mean, New Orleans is a party city, so maybe they were more happy to do that. But yeah, they came out of quarantine, and because they were so terrified of the Axeman, even though it was more likely that they would die of the Spanish influenza than it was to be murdered by the Axemen. But yeah, they listened to him, and for a time it worked, but eventually he got bored and started trying to kill people again. But there's also so much mystery, like no one knows who he was. People, like there are survivors that can't remember, or there's like conflicting stories. Some people are like, he was a woman, no, he was 2 men, no, he was a giant man, and it's just like there's so many conflicting stories and no one really knows who he was or anything about him, just what was left from the crimes that he committed. So yeah, as much as you can like a serial killer, he's my favorite.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's a weird question to ask, but I'm like, do you have a favorite piece of?
He targeted Italian Americans, and I'm Italian, so I'm like, I can say that he's my favorite serial killer. Sure.
We'll just go with that.
Okay. Well, for me, it depends, because like the parts that I perform are so different. Like even sometimes we mock that my parts are not as funny because they're like a little bit darker within the show. But I find like I enjoy so much the last play because it's like it's just a moment of chaos, like pure chaos on stage, and the three of us are together in it. So I narrate a little bit of it, but then when I step into the scene with them, it's just so much fun. And I also have like a fun factor that if you get to see the show, you're gonna know what I'm talking about, that just possesses me. And it takes over me, and it's just like, So I really enjoy that part, but in the solo parts, interestingly enough, like I'm a hardcore feminist, and I love Ted Bundy's poem. I really enjoy performing that part, and like, of course I have my own process for it to like make peace with it and to find myself within the words. And I think I found very interesting parts of how he played it and how he was just like, I don't deserve to be here because I'm not like the rest of them. And he certainly wasn't like the rest of them. He was awful. He was a terrible human being. But I find so much pleasure in delivering it, and then when they come and say Ted Bundy, seeing people's reaction of like, that makes sense. It's such a reward.
Nice.
I've always found I perform. Israel Keys wrote a letter or a poem before. It was actually a suicide note while he was in jail. And I found it very difficult at first to perform it because I knew what it was about. But I think it really gives you, a glimpse into someone's real raw thoughts. Like this is someone's last words was the suicide note. And we do keep that poem, we do keep a little bit lighter, just because there's so many heavier parts, so we kind of, see what we can do with certain items. So I think it makes sense within the show, but it was hard for me to really like dive into it that way because I knew like these are someone's last words. It's also like 4 minutes long, and it's only the first half of the poem. So the second half is a lot more dark.
I've never read it.
Oh, it's a lot darker. So the first half is probably the better of the two to share. I found it maybe not my, like, I don't know if I can say it's my favorite thing to perform, but it's certainly been the most challenging and most thought-provoking for myself.
And you get to add little fun chords.
Would you like?
You guys do make it so much fun. The in between the characters that you put on, there's so much fun. Like you guys say it is like the heavier moments. I'm like, I had a great time.
I love that.
We do try to keep it like a high energy variety show. Just to keep it so that it's not too heavy. It's just about
the topic itself is very heavy. If we lean into that, we wouldn't even be here. You know?
Everybody would leave.
Totally.
I think Blair did such a good job. Blair Moro, our producer, writer, director. Everything. He did such a good job of balancing the heavier, kind of more poignant moments with the comedic moments. And so you'll have like something more serious and like something like there's parts that like give me goosebumps. And then he'll like break it with like Katie has some ridiculous quotes from serial killers, and she'll just come on and be like, "Oh, I saw grandma."
We've also turned one of the songs that we perform. It just sound. I think it was it written in the 80s?
Which one?
80s or 90s? Waco.
Correct.
Waco,
70s?
I think it was 70s.
It has like a
80s.
group.
It was in the 80s.
80s.
Yeah.
A group pop kind of feel. And so I was excited to choreograph that one. And so it's like we kind of decided to lean into it and just turn it into like a bad pop group that performs it.
Girl gang.
So
but then like at the end turns creepy and weird and
and then Isabella, which one of you talk about the song afterwards?
Paulina.
Kind of brings it back down to earth, and we tell the audience, okay, this is actually why this song was written, and who it was written about, and what he did. So
and you can hear a pin drop
when
we're disclosing that, because everyone is having such a good time, and then it's like,
Although some people who are more familiar with true crime, as soon as we start the chorus, there's a madman living in Waco.
They get it.
They're like, oh, Waco. I know that.
That's awesome. It's so much fun. I love it. Do you guys do just theater, or do you film act as well, or you just love doing Fringe?
I do mainly musical theater. I was also a voice teacher for 6 years, and I music direct as well. So I'm more on the theater, the musical part of theater.
Nice.
I'll just do whatever people will give me.
Whatever you're ready, I can do it.
I'm happy to do it. Exactly.
Well, I've done a lot of theater. I started doing theater when I was 13, but I also started at the same time doing background for film back in Mexico. Right now, I feel that I'm more solid in my theater career, but I'm doing and trying to fit into the film industry more. That's why I moved to Vancouver mainly. And I've done a little bit of everything, really. Also advertising and a little bit of modeling. So a little bit of everything.
Nice.
I'm definitely more theater, but trying to transition to film, because as an actor in Vancouver, if you would like to make living acting, you kind of have to try to get into film. Theater is very kind of exclusive in Vancouver, at least paid theater. I just take what I can get. Try to do everything. And
then we also work
day jobs
as well. So
As we must.
as we must.
The artist
day
life.
jobs. I'm always curious.
With this economy?
If they match.
I'm a legal assistant. So.
Nice. Legal assistant and musical theater. I love it.
Lawyers are pretty performative, so it works out.
I'm a Spanish tutor and a logistics assistant.
Okay. All right.
You want a list?
She does everything.
I substitute English teach for speakers of other languages, so like at international schools in Vancouver. I mark tests for people wanting to come and live in Canada or study in Canada. That one is remote; it's all recorded, so I'm doing it now as I tour.
Nice.
I sometimes do Uber Eats.
Me too.
Make those extra bucks.
Right? I'm like, I need an extra $50 today. I'm just going to turn on the app.
I do PA work in film. I do background in film. And then, whatever acting job that I can find.
That's wicked.
We've actually run into each other on set, and it's like, oh my God! Right, and even with Blair, because Blair also, he's, what is he?
PA. Well, no, now he's a TAD,
Right.
trainee assistant director.
Yes, and we've also run into each other. And we've worked in a different form of theater, immersive experiences back in Vancouver.
Yeah, we worked. Yeah.
As a couple, actually, and it was like theme with one of the. It was the theme with one of the very famous Disney movies that has like a beast and someone that is very pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was You can do math. So that was really fun because we already had like the chemistry and the trust with one another and like certain running jokes. So it was really fun to do that together.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What do you find is the hardest part about acting? The career of acting.
Oh, the career of acting.
Being able to find the time and the energy to audition while doing all the other stuff that you have to do to pay the bills. Sometimes I find that really difficult to balance. Like sometimes I'll just go hard in the auditions and I'll be auditioning so much and then I'm like, I need money.
All right.
And then sometimes I'll like have taken a break, so I'll apply for a bunch of auditions and then like if I get like several of them and I'm like, I don't have time to do all these auditions.
Sure.
So that is hard in like the career aspect of acting. That's what I find the most difficult.
Well, for me, a lot of things. First, like being from a different country, being new in a city that. Like everything in acting is about connections, right? And if you're a newcomer and you don't know anybody, and on top of that, you have a little bit of an accent, it's like, can you actually act? And it's like, look at my resume, like, come on. But maybe because they don't know them, like they don't know the teachers who I train with in Mexico, like they're like, we don't know those people. And it's like, that's challenging. And on the other side of the spectrum, I have 2 chronic diseases or illnesses. And so finding myself with willing to perform or to do an audition or to be even surrounded by people, sometimes it's so challenging because it's like, right now I'm like in the middle of my luteal week and I have PMDD and I don't have a mindset right now to be happy and smile at people. So that's been challenging, particularly now in the tour. It's like, okay, we're performing and I feel like shit. Okay, but these 2 have been amazing with me and like, they're like, you need a hug right now. Our director as well, he's the 3 of them have been amazingly supportive of that. So
we have to support each other.
Yes,
because we're together for so long, and
we can't kill each other yet.
Maybe by the last city.
Victoria.
Cabaret of Murder. 2. The cast
gone real.
down to 2 people. I would agree with what Bella said. Definitely finding the time and energy in between, like working and trying to just survive and live. Vancouver is also not a cheap city to live in, so similarly to Toronto.
I think you guys are a little bit worse than we are. I
think a tiny bit, but
groceries are insane.
Oh my God,
everything is
so
everything.
Every time I go to the grocery store, they have to stop me from buying everything because I'm like, this is so cheap, this is so cheap, this is so cheap. And they're like, Bella, we don't have room in the van for all these groceries.
That's true.
That's hilarious. I remember groceries being shocked going out to BC, being like, sorry, how much is cheese?
Oh, and gas.
Oh my
Very
God.
expensive.
It's always like fluctuates between like 190 and 200.
Lately,
that's
for
crazy.
sure.
It's crazy.
A cat that doesn't want to be held. That's nuts.
Go electric.
Find a bike.
My hybrid car.
Oh yeah.
Totally.
When I get back to Vancouver, that's my first purchase once I get money.
I get money.
What's one of my money jobs? Supply me with the funds. That's what we're doing. No kidding, eh?
Oh,
Nuts. Sorry, were you finished? Did I interrupt you?
No, it just definitely the time and energy for sure is definitely a big one. I'm also pregnant right now, so I'm Thank you very much. It's very exciting, and they've also, as Paulina said too, they've also all been very supportive of my needs and everything too. But definitely finding, knowing how much you can do while you're pregnant, and feeling like you're doing enough acting wise and everything, and auditioning and like touring and still and growing a human,
right?
And
that little thing.
Is that draining?
You have no idea. Also, like what my acting career is going to look like after I give birth.
Is that a worry that you have?
It was a larger worry before, and now I've just accepted it. This tour has, I think, I've been able to prove to myself that if you really want something, you just need to just do it.
Yeah.
Nike, just do it. I don't know if I can say Nike on here.
I don't know.
Let's cut that part. But definitely that, like, if you want something, you just do it. And obviously, sacrifices will need to be made once you have a child. But I'm certainly going to keep keeping that promise to myself of continuing to try.
Yeah, 100%. That's wicked. Congratulations. It's so exciting. And so you're touring, when does your tour end? I can't see the back of your shirt. September.
Yeah.
We're back.
That's nuts. That's a long time to be away from home.
Yeah, a long time.
We might have 1 or 2 nights at home.
Yeah, maybe before Victoria.
Maybe. We'll
Before
see.
the last city.
Yeah.
Because Vancouver's on the way to Victoria, so
That's fair. That's fair.
yeah, we're still working that bit out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go over all of the awards and accolades and stuff that you got before Cabaret of Murder.
All right.
It's not all just talk. Everyone else agrees.
Everyone.
That's right. That's right.
Critics' Choice here in Toronto.
Yes.
Toronto
The
Star.
Toronto Star, yeah.
Excellent.
Montreal, we received
Spirit of the Fringe.
Yes.
That was particularly for Blair
Yes.
because he did an amazing job
He did.
at being present at all the events, just making sure that everyone was taken care of and connecting with everyone.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Ottawa, we won
Best laugh.
Best laugh.
Artist Choice Award. Yeah, best laugh.
The entire
The
cast.
entire cast. We all have some evil laughs in there.
Yeah.
And then previous years,
Yes.
last year we won.
We didn't win, but we sold
out.
We sold out.
our
Yeah.
entire runs for Edmonton and Vancouver.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
And we
incredible.
won, in the first year that we did, we won Pick of the Fringe in Vancouver.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's awesome. Congratulations. Killing it on the fringe scene.
We're trying. After Toronto, we will be in Winnipeg, and then Calgary, Edmonton, and Victoria. So come on out and see Cabaret of Murder.
Yeah, your closest friend.
So good, so fun. And it's true. If you like true crime, you're gonna love this play. It's so much fun. So much fun. Wicked. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on my
Thank you for having us.
Vancouver girlies and first multiple interview. I'm thrilled. So thank you. And enjoy the rest of your run.
Thank you very much.
And the rest of your whole tour. That's nuts. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So yeah, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something from this interview. I hope you enjoyed this interview. And if you are in Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, please go check out Cabaret of Murder. It's such a good show. You will not regret it. As always, if you liked it, then click that damn like button, subscribe, share with a friend that you have in the entertainment industry. And if you'd like to donate to help us keep this podcast going, you can head to my website, AlisonMullings.com. And there's a place to donate there. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next interview.